In the heart of a busy city, a weary homeless man searched a trash bin for food when a young police officer pulled up, sirens flaring, mistaking him for a thief. The man didn't resist, just placed trembling hands on the hood and whispered, "I served this country, son." Hours later, a black SUV stopped beside the flashing lights, and a 4-star general stepped out. What happened next silenced an entire city.
Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from?
The street was quiet, washed in the pale gray of dawn when the squeal of tires shattered the silence. A patrol cruiser jerked to a stop beside a bent, weary man searching through a trash bin. "Hands on the hood, now!" The young officer shouted, hand on his holster, voice sharp with authority and fear. The old man turned slowly, eyes steady, breath shallow from the cold. His hands trembled as he obeyed, palms flat against the metal. "I didn't take anything," he said softly. The officer didn't listen. He slammed the cuffs tight, forcing him down as a phone camera clicked nearby. The man winced but didn't resist. "I served this country, son," he whispered. The officer scoffed. "Sure you did, old-timer." The words cut deeper than steel. Around them, dawn kept rising. But respect had never felt so far away. Before the street took him, his life was framed in medals and photographs, faces of brothers in arms frozen in sepia smiles, a folded flag that once lay over his friend's coffin, and a letter written in sand-stained ink from a man who never made it home. He had come back carrying ghosts, believing love could silence them. But his wife's illness drained the savings. His job vanished in layoffs, and one winter morning, he found their house empty but for her wedding ring on the table. Still, he never stopped keeping himself neat, washing in public sinks, polishing his worn boots until they shone faintly like honor remembered. At night he slept beside an old rucksack stitched with fading unit patches, the only family he had left. And each morning, with cracked lips and steady eyes, he nodded to strangers passing by and said, "Good morning," as if dignity were something a man could still choose. By mid-morning, the rookie's name had become a badge of pride among his peers, the officer who kept the streets clean. Every compliment fed the chip on his shoulder, every pat on the back another layer of armor against humility. When he spotted the same ragged figure near the corner store, his pulse quickened with self-righteous certainty. The veteran was helping an elderly woman lift grocery bags into her trunk, his hand steady, his posture careful not to startle her. But the officer saw only a vagrant too close to a civilian. "Hey, step away from her," he barked, striding forward. The woman turned, startled. "He's helping me," she protested, but her words were lost beneath the officer's command. He shoved the old man against the wall, twisting his arm, pressing him flat against the brick. The veteran didn't resist. His silence was disarming, almost painful. He stared ahead, not at the officer but somewhere far beyond. Perhaps a desert road or a comrade's last breath. "You think playing nice gets you out of this?" The officer sneered, cuffing him once more. The woman's voice trembled. "Let him go, he's done nothing wrong." Bystanders stopped, phones raised, their murmurs swelling with disbelief. The air thickened with quiet outrage as the officer grabbed his radio. "Unit 3-4, requesting transport," he said, his voice clipped and professional as though routine could disguise cruelty. The veteran finally spoke, his tone calm but heavy with years the officer couldn't measure. "Careful, son. The uniform doesn't make the man." The young cop's jaw tightened. He yanked harder on the cuffs, needing to reassert control. Sirens echoed faintly from blocks away, a sound of judgment drawing near. Around them, respect tilted, slowly, silently, beginning to turn against the man who had mistaken power for purpose. When the transport van failed to arrive quickly enough, the officer grew impatient. He knelt beside the veteran's rucksack, ripping it open with a sharp motion, scattering its contents across the pavement. Out rolled a canteen, a folded letter and a pair of tarnished dog tags that clinked against the ground. The officer snatched them up, squinting at the faded engraving through the grime. "You expect me to believe you're this guy?" he said with a mocking laugh. "These are 20 years old. You probably bought them at a pawn shop." He tossed them carelessly onto the hood, but his partner, older, quieter, stepped closer. "Hold on," he murmured, lifting the tags, tracing the letters with his thumb. The name stirred something faint in his memory. Across the street stood a bronze memorial wall for fallen soldiers. The partner's eyes widened. "Wait, this name, Daniel Reeve, isn't he the one from Kandahar? The one who dragged his unit out of that burning convoy?" The rookie hesitated, his confidence flickering for the first time. "That story's ancient. Could be anyone," he muttered, turning away. But the murmurs in the crowd shifted, curiosity breaking through the earlier tension. Phones zoomed in on the dog tags, flashes of recognition spreading faster than the officer's denial. One bystander whispered, "I've seen that name, he's a hero." Another was already streaming live, the video climbing online within minutes. The older partner looked back at the veteran, at the quiet posture, the steady breath, the unmistakable calm of someone who had seen fire before. "Sir," he said quietly to the rookie, "I think you just made a mistake." But pride was louder than reason. The officer crossed his arms, forcing a smirk, unaware that the world beyond his street was already watching, and the truth was racing toward him faster than the sound of his own voice. A deep rumble cut through the rising noise of the crowd. Heads turned as a black SUV, flanked by 2 military police vehicles, rolled to a stop at the curb. Its doors opened in precise motion. 2 aides stepped out first. Then a tall man in full-dress uniform, stars glinting faintly in the morning light. The rookie's voice faltered as the general's gaze swept across the scene, freezing on the handcuffed veteran pressed against the patrol car. The general's jaw hardened. "What in God's name are you doing to this man?" His voice cracked like thunder, silencing the street. The officer stammered, "Sir, this man was trespassing." But the general cut him off, fury breaking through the calm. "Do you have any idea who you just arrested?" He strode forward, brushing past the crowd, stopping inches from the veteran. For the first time, the young officer saw the shift. The general's sternness softened into something reverent. "Sergeant Major Daniel Reeve," he said quietly, emotion tightening his throat. "Silver Star, 3 tours. He saved my entire unit in Kandahar when I was a captain." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. The general turned to the rookie, his voice low and trembling. "He's the reason I'm alive." No one moved. Rain began to fall in thin, steady drops, hissing on the pavement. The general unclipped the cuffs himself, his hand lingering as if releasing the weight of a nation's forgetfulness. "You should be wearing the uniform," he said, voice breaking, "not begging on the streets." The veteran said nothing, just a nod, a faint glimmer of pride behind tired eyes. For a long, sacred moment, the city stood still, the noise replaced by silence that demanded respect. And in that silence, the rookie finally understood what duty truly meant. Rain poured harder now, washing the dust and noise from the street, leaving only the sound of remorse. The young officer stood motionless, water running down his face, though no one could tell where the rain ended and shame began. The veteran turned to him slowly, shoulders straight despite the years that had bent his back. There was no anger in his eyes, only the weary understanding of a man who had seen too many battles to fight one more. "You are doing your job, son," he said softly. "Just remember, not all battles are fought overseas." The words landed heavier than any reprimand. The general gestured to his aides, ordering a vehicle forward. "Take him to the base infirmary," he said. And when the veteran stepped into the SUV, the crowd instinctively parted. Heads bowed, cameras forgotten. Days later, the footage spread across the nation, sparking outrage, then reflection. The rookie appeared on the local news, his voice trembling as he apologized publicly, his eyes wet with something deeper than regret. The department announced a new initiative for homeless veterans, pledging to rebuild what pride had once ignored. Weeks passed before anyone recognized the same old man again, this time in clean clothes, serving soup at the shelter where he once slept. When a young recruit entered one afternoon, unsure and silent, the veteran smiled and handed him a bowl. "Eat up, soldier," he said kindly. Outside, the rain returned, but this time it felt like cleansing, not punishment but grace. And in that small corner of the city, humility stood taller than rank, and redemption wore no medals at all. Respect isn't earned through titles or money. It's carved in the silence of sacrifice. That morning, on a wet city street, a nation was reminded that heroism doesn't always shine through medals or parades. Sometimes it hides behind weary eyes and torn coats, in men who once carried the weight of freedom, and now carry only their memories. At sunrise days later, the general stood beside the memorial wall, waiting. The veteran approached slowly, wearing a clean shirt and the same calm dignity that had never left him. No words passed between them, only a mutual salute, steady, reverent, eternal. In that moment, the past and present met in silence, and the world seemed to pause in gratitude. Heroes don't disappear. We simply stop noticing them. If this story moved you, share it, because someone out there still needs to remember what respect truly means.